We are diving into the amazing world of phospholipids, those little molecules that are made up of cell membrane. But before then, let's briefly look at what the cell membrane is. Then we can now go back and look at what the phospholipid is. Here we have a roughly sketch of a cell. From the inside we have what we call the nucleus. And this is what we call outside of the cell, this world, what protects the interior of the cell is what we call the plasma membrane. The plasma membrane, we can also call it as the cell membrane. So, the plasma membrane is also known as the cell membrane, is primarily made up of phospholipid bilayer, embedded protein, cholesterol molecules, and carbohydrate. The phospholipid, this forms a bilayer with hydrophilic. The word hydro means water, philic means love. And when we say phobic, it simply means fear. We can have two combined words, hydrophilic, which is water attracting, and hydrophobic, which is water repelling. So, phospholipid, this forms a bilayer with hydrophobic, which is water repelling tails facing inward, and hydrophilic, water attracting head, which is facing outward. So this structure creates a semi-permeable barriers. Here we have a structure of the phospholipid. When this phospholipid form this special arrangement, this is what we call the bilayer. Notice that the word ICF simply means intracellular intracellular fluid. But basically, IC, that is the intracellular. It can be the space which is inside of the cell. Remember, we said both inside and outside of the cell is made up of what we call water. So the ECF is extracellular fluid. So the head of the phospholipid is facing ICF and the other head is facing the ECF. Notice that when phospholipids are in water, they naturally arrange themselves in a double layer, which we call the bilayer, with the head facing outward toward water and the tails is tucked inside away from water. This arrangement forms a stable barrier and is essential for structure of the cell membrane. Notice that the head of the phospholipid contains a group called the phosphate. It's been denoted by this formula, which is PO4 3-. And phosphate is a combination of phosphorus and oxygen atom, and it is linked to another group that can also attract water molecules. And this entire heads group has two slightly electrical charges due to the arrangement of the atoms. A quick review also on water. Remember, water has a formula of 2 hydrogen, H2O. So it consists of 2 hydrogen atoms bonded to 2 single oxygen atoms. Tricovalent bonding. Basically we said the oxygen has a slightly negative charges while the hydrogen atoms has slightly positive charges. So the structure of water basically is going to be 1 oxygen bonded to 2 hydrogen. And we said the oxygen atom is slightly negative. And we said the hydrogen atoms are slightly positive charges. And if you could remember, we made mention previously on the video which we have on properties of water, which I'm going to drop the link down in the description below. We said this polarity of water allows the water molecules to form a hydrogen bond with each other, and it basically results in dynamic network of interactions. That is for water. But for the phospholipid bilayer, we said is the fundamental structure of the cell membrane. It does 2 things, which we call the BSF. The first thing it does is barrier function. Then we have the structural support, and here we have the fluidity. And another thing which are the types of the phospholipid, we have things like sphingomyelin, phosphatidyl-choline, phosphatidyl-ethanolamine, phosphatidyl-serine. Now that we have seen the arrangement of water molecules, let's see for the phospholipid. or the phosphate group rather. Here we have PO4. It's simply going to be, we are going to have the one phosphorus, which will be at the middle. Remember, we have 4 oxygen. I'm just trying to simplify it. We have 1, 2, 3. The 4th one is going to be this. 4 oxygen is gone. We are done with this. What about the 3? 3 of those oxygen are going to carry negative charges. Slightly negative, and slightly negative. Here we have positive, and here we have negative. Basically, attraction seems to be possible when we have positive plus negative. So basically, everything we're basically talking about the head. So a very quick revision. We said water molecules which are slightly charged, which is polar. Remember, they are slightly charged, and we call the water molecules to be polar. Attract to discharged head, so it like to be near water. That is why we call it hydrophilic. Hydro means water, philic means love. So now that we are done with the head, what about the tail? The tails are made up of fatty acid, which are long chain of carbon atoms. Unlike the head, these tails do not have any charges. They don't attract water, and in fact, they simply avoid it. They are called hydrophobic. Hydro means water, and what phobic means fear. So basically, they are scared of water. That is why they tend to stay away from water. Now that we have seen everything we need, what if we want to look at the skeletal structure? Notice that in the skeletal structure, the head is usually represented as a cycle. You can have a cycle, right? With a P, which is a symbol to show the phosphate group. Sometimes it even has a group attached like choline, and we said choline has general formula C5H4NO, which adds to its attraction to water. Together, these charged areas is what make it to be hydrophilic. Remember, the phosphate basically is PO43 minus. So basically, this is incomplete. We can have the remaining structures, which is double bond can be here, 1 oxygen, single bonded, and here we have the complete head. So the next thing which we need to put is the glycerol now. So glycerol basically is been attached to this carbon, which we can have, okay, let's see, CH2, CH, another CH2, right? Combine. It's supposed to be this way. I'm supposed to do it upside down, but yeah, we can manage it this way also. You can have a double bond and oxygen here, another double bond, and we have oxygen. But everything here is supposed to be in same cycle. So then the only thing which we are left with is the tail now. The fatty acid tails are made up of what we call the long chain of carbons and hydrogen. And these tails are non-polar, meaning they don't have any charges to interact with water, which is why we call them hydrophobic or water-faring. But now that we are looking at the skeletal structure, each fatty acid tails is drawn in zigzag, right? I said zigzag, something like this. Okay, let's try to draw it and see. It can be straight. So why are we drawing this in zigzag? Notice that each bend represents a carbon atom, which is in between here. We said what? Each bend represents a carbon atom. Sometimes one of these tails has a double bond. Let's take an example with the one on top. Let's give it a double bond. So when it has a double bond, the zigzag is also going to bend. We are going to explain that. if you noticed, after giving into the double bond here, I somehow like bend the zigzag. So when it add a bend to a chain, this bend is essentially making the cell membrane to be flexible and fluid. So basically, this is the reason why we are drawing the phospholipid as this. So let's assume here, this is the ICF, and let's call this to be the ACF. And it has a very special structure. Another phospholipid will try to protect this. Remember, we said this place is what we call the hydrophobic, and these are the hydrophilic. The ones that love water are tasting the water, and the ones that doesn't like water are running away from the water. And this is what protects the plasma membrane. So this is it for this problem. I hope you find it very helpful. Please, if you do, just do me a favor by clicking on the subscribe button. Thank you for watching, and see you next time. We are diving into the amazing